Good morning, Metalheads Internet. Welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown, and today we're looking at the latest album from Angel Witch entitled Angel of Light. Angel Witch is a British heavy metal band stemming from the new wave of British heavy metal, a scene and movement that gave us such iconic and influential acts like Iron Maiden, Def Leppard, Saxon, Venom. And while Angel Witch may have never risen to those exact same levels of commercial success, influence, and acclaim, they have nonetheless remained a pivotal force within underground metal, in particular a massive influence to the 80s thrash metal scene. So much so that, according to the NWOBHM Encyclopedia published in 2005, Angel Witch may or may not have been the band to convince Lars Ulrich to form this little band called Metallica. Maybe you've heard of them, I don't know. I mean, they released Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets. Their album, the Black Album, sells 5,000 copies almost every week, and they're the most commercially successful metal band of all time. They've been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They've won 9 Grammys. I don't know, maybe you've heard of them. I hope that jogs your memory. I don't know. With all this in mind, I was really excited to sit down and listen to Angel of Light, especially considering that their last album was released in 2012, and let's be honest, they weren't a particularly active band before that either. I mean, granted, they've been active enough to have a shitload of lineup changes, which have included adding Exodus's Tom Hunting to the band and Carcass's Bill Steer, but not active enough to do a full tour as far as I can tell, not active enough to put out a whole bunch of material. In fact, before that 2012 record, their last album was released in 1986. So really, when you do the math, this is more like the first time in almost 33 years that Angel Witch have really gotten their shit together and put out a record that people really want to talk about and really dig into. And fucking good for them, because hopefully that means Angel Witch will finally get their true moment in the spotlight that they have so desperately deserved, in my opinion. With that in mind, right off the bat, you should be happy to know that if you love Angel Witch, if you love that early work, if you love their raucous, melodic take on underground heavy metal, you will absolutely love Angel of Light right off the bat. Aesthetically, it mimics everything that made that self-titled album such a fantastic peach of catchy rock and roll, with its fantastic guitar sprawls and its simplistic but hooky vocals, especially in regards to the sound mix here. I mean, it's not quite as rough around the edges as the self-titled debut, but it doesn't exactly have a lot of modern polish to it either. Guitars ring out, drums clash out, it's kind of covered in this static-filled reverb cloak. Now, with this in mind, you could argue right off the bat that the album does get by on nostalgia, and to some extent you're not wrong. But at the same time, there are so many modern heavy metal bands that do the exact same fucking thing, and they're doing it because of Angel Witch. So if any band gets away with sounding like Angel Witch, with sticking to the Angel Witch formula, then it's motherfucking Angel Witch. Tracks like Don't Turn Your Back, Condemned, Window of Despair, and so many more are filled with all of the classic flavors that don't just define the new wave of British heavy metal, but the classic heavy metal sound as a whole. Particularly on the aforementioned Don't Turn Your Back, which opens the entire record with a somewhat punky attitude, some aggressive riffing, and a somewhat melodramatic and engaging chorus. Another track, The Night Is Falling, even reminds me of Sorceress from the band's debut album, as well as bringing in some flourishes from the more dramatic aspects of bands like Queensryche, Tigers of Pantang, even Scorpions to an extent, making for one of the album's most dramatic and also most enthralling numbers. But of course, Angel Witch also want to remind you that NWOBHM was not the start of heavy metal itself, as they take several opportunities to harken back to some of their influences. Take, for instance, a song like I Am Infamy, which does sound like a more amped up 80s version of a classic Black Sabbath cut, particularly with its surprisingly doomy and ominous opening. Or even in the aforementioned Window of Despair, which does have some very subtle traces of Achilles' Last Stand from Led Zeppelin. Very subtle, mind you, but if you pay attention, you will find it. With all this in mind, it goes without saying that we're not exactly dealing with the most original songwriting here, and that is maybe one of the album's biggest problems. It is inherently pretty predictable if you know who Angel Witch are, and even if you don't, you can kind of figure out the flow of the record from the first song. On top of that, there's also the fact that all of these songs rely on more traditional hard rock song structures, and as a result, don't quite benefit from being stretched out as long as they are stretched out. Like, all these songs are good, don't get me wrong, but they'd be so much better, so much more effective if you did some serious fat trimming here. The Night Is Calling in particular stands out for this reason. I really enjoy this song, but it would be so much better if you trimmed 2 whole minutes off of it. There's no need for this to be 7 minutes and 20 seconds long. Again, when you're dealing with these classic hard rock song structures, the worst thing you can really do with them is drag them out. I love Back in Black by AC/DC, but I promise you it would not be better if it was made 4 minutes longer. And now at the same time, this is somewhat in character with Angel Witch. Even their debut album is inherently a little bit bloated, let's be totally honest here. And again, all the songs are still really good. I'm just bringing up an element that would make this not just a good record, but a fucking great one. But as it stands, who the fuck is going to argue with a really good record? I mean, this has some of the catchiest and most entertaining classic heavy metal that I've heard all year, so I would give this a good solid 3.5 out of 5. Angel Witch fans will be absolutely delighted by this thing from start to finish, even if it is simply because of nostalgia. And for anyone not super familiar with the band, this would not be a bad place to start at all. Granted, I would still recommend the debut album over this, but I won't lie that there are some aspects about this that are a lot more professional and just better executed than that debut album, so, you know, no harm done if you approach this first. I'm really hoping that this does good things for Angel Witch, and I'm not just saying that so that I can get more Angel Witch and they can improve on these things. I'm saying that because they frankly deserve it. Even if they never make another record ever again, I want them to be remembered because as much as we know them in the metal underground, they're not quite as remembered everywhere else, and they're such an important band. Sure, maybe not as important as Judas Priest or Motorhead or anything like that, but hey, any band that inspires fucking Metallica needs to be noted. For almost that reason alone, give this album a shot and sink your teeth into some deliciously catchy old school hard rock and heavy metal. 3.5 out of 5, a really good record. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.